Hey, everybody, and welcome to another one of the Horror Movie Night live episodes. I can already see that someone knows that another week, another day without Brian. But Brian is working. He's employed up in Georgia for this week. So at least he has an excuse besides his anxiety for once. Just this one time. That's all I'm giving him. But, I mean, if you've listened to this week's mailbag episode, then you already know that he's everybody's least favorite host anyway. So let's bring in everybody's favorite host, the hostess with the mostest, Scott. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Scott, I'm so excited for you to do this episode because I don't know shit about video games. But
I don't either. I know shit about video games that are like 30 years old. That's about it, man.
Well, we brought in the big reinforcements. We brought in formerly Geekscape Games host, currently maybe other podcast hosts. I don't know. He hasn't put out anything since Corona happened. So let's bring in Derek Kraneveldt.
It's called a hiatus. The world is a stressful place right now. Okay, guys. Jesus. How are you guys doing? Also, 30-year-old games. I wasn't born then, so I don't know much about.
30?
I am 30. I'm just 30, so I wasn't playing a lot of games at 0, unfortunately.
But
how could you call yourself a gamer then?
Yeah, how dare you? You should be ashamed of yourself. So let's get into a whole bunch of stuff. But I was telling Derek about this before we started the show that I got a very, very important email in my inbox.
The most
today.
Important email.
I got an email that let me know that on July 10th, Regal Cinemas is opening back up.
Oh, shit.
And that people that have the unlimited pass get free access to every movie until September. So
still those theaters.
Yeah. So now comes the point where my brain is like, do I go or do I not go? And as Derek and I were talking about, there's not going to be any major releases in July. It's going to be a dumping ground, which leads to one of two options. Either it's stuff that I don't want to see, or it's a dumping ground of stuff that is totally speaking the Matt Kelly language.
And you'll be alone there anyway, so it's
yeah,
perfect.
exactly. That's kind of my perspective.
Well, do we have updated like release dates for the shit that I care about? Is Saint Maud, Antlers, shit. What else were we gonna do?
Candyman and Halloween Kills.
Well, I don't care.
Candyman was fall anyways, wasn't it? I think it's too early to.
I think it was supposed to be August, wasn't it?
I think it was late. It was late summer. Yeah.
I know, like the late July movies, like Wonder Woman and like Tenet, just got pushed a couple of. They just got pushed a couple of days back, so I think that Wonder Woman's like October now. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but theaters in like Georgia where Brian is, like opening up with no limits type thing, like it's tough to say if we'll get any of those movies. Hopefully not,
we'll get
as far as things are going, but
we'll all fucking die.
Yeah. Right. How bad do you want to see Wonder Woman 1984?
I want to see it pretty bad, but not bad enough to die like choking on my own.
Well, I think the first two that you named, like Antlers and Saint Maud, I could see them actually doing better going straight to streaming anyway.
I don't know why they haven't already.
Yeah, like maybe there's a dispute. Maybe like, Shudder's showing interest, but they think that they have a Netflix worthy content.
Are you talking about Shudder? Because I'm wearing my free Shudder t-shirt tonight.
Oh, look at that.
His free horror movie night t-shirt.
I came representing, so I think I paid for this t-shirt.
Where's the band of the show he's going to?
So Derek,
only if it's Taylor Swift, okay?
Derek, before we dive into any hard talk, let's talk about the shows that you used to host.
Ow,
yeah. So you guys brought me here to talk about video games today because I have 2 on hiatus video game shows. So one of them is called Xbox Game Passengers. Xbox Game Pass is a great service. Matt actually was on the 3rd episode of the show where we were playing a great game, What Remains of Edith Finch. I asked him what he thought of the audio in the game, and he said he was listening to music while playing it, so he didn't hear any of it. So I'll never forget that.
Oh yeah.
But
it was
yeah,
a walking simulator. I was like, all right.
Like, do you watch movies with music on? Do you listen to podcasts while you're watching Freddy versus Jason? No, you don't do any of that because atmosphere exists and dialogue exists, and it's all very important.
Derek, I don't know if you realize who you're talking to, but Matt is like, he can't handle doing just one thing at a time.
Yeah, no, it's bad.
I have learned that over the years. How many podcasts are you up to now?
If things go well, 4.
Do you want 2
5?
more? Because I got a couple I'm looking to unload.
You mean to host or to edit?
You want to play the games for me and just give me cliff notes?
You're going to get really bad cliff notes that don't involve anything about the music or the atmosphere. That's for damn sure.
That's also notorious for the notes he takes are literally chicken scratch on a piece of paper.
I think that my writing is probably worse than yours, so I think that I could make sense of that.
Did I say fish manners? Fuck manners?
Oh, food monster.
Food monster.
Oh, I know what that is. That was the last thing you were movie, right?
Yeah, it was, boy. But yeah, so, the world's in chaos as always, but horror movie night prevails.
It's alive and well. Have you guys picked up any like quarantine hobbies or what's anything new in your podcast? More podcasting?
How about you, Scott? You started a business.
Oh, dude, I'm regretting it already.
Oh no!
I have 2 jobs right now. It's hard. I'm lazy as fuck. Like I can't do my 50-hour a week minimum job. Like 50 hours minimum a week job, and then burn the midnight oil. Oh, not midnight oil, but like just fucking have no. Today was actually the first time in almost 3 weeks that I touched my guitar. That guy right there.
Oh, look at it.
Yeah, she's very sad. That's Abigail. Abigail.
Oh, we've got big news of Scott. No, we also have to. I want to throw this comment up and give a huge congratulations to Logan, who's a dad today.
Wait. Is he a dad today, or is he still waiting to become a dad?
No,
today?
he posted pictures. He's got the baby.
Is he watching this on the day that he's got the baby? Child? Because that's like poor prioritizing. If he's watching this,
he snuck out while his wife was about to go into labor to listen to the mailbag episode that we put out announcing.
My gosh,
he did win.
Story was read on air, and yeah, so. Hey Tom, congratulations on those tempeh tacos today, bro. I am jealous. I have eaten nothing but fucking, what did I have for breakfast today? Ice cream.
Ooh.
And kombucha.
Ooh.
And I spent the rest of the day eating sourdough, like crunchy sourdough pretzels and yellow mustard. Literally, like that's been my day today. It has been so fucking busy.
And everyone seemed to get their Jaws Blu-rays that won them.
Fast.
Yeah.
Did you guys see? Speaking of Jaws, that looked like a great release. But the Mondo, the poster company, the record company that I have spent way too much money on, they were doing
what is your average at Comic-Con at Mondo's booth?
I mean, as much as I can spend, but their stuff sells out so fast that it's. I actually spent part of the last week doing like a spreadsheet of all the posters I have and how big the run was and like links to the original pages and stuff. I only have about like 25 over since 2014, which like is only a few a year, really.
Oh, that's really impressive. I probably have like 10 Mondo releases.
Yeah, it's not as much as I thought that they.
I have more chill than you, I guess.
Well, you sent me to stand in line on your behalf before.
You have done that several times, and you're my favorite person for it. So I love you for that. It was always really tough living in Canada because their shipping was prohibitively expensive up here, but it's gotten much better recently, which I just discovered in like the last 2 weeks, and I've ordered several posters since then. So we'll see what happens.
I have a record to show you. Hold on.
I was just gonna say one of my staying at home and trying not to leave the house, hobbies that I've gotten into is I discovered vinyl, and I spent several $100s on Mondo vinyl in the past couple of weeks as well. But they just announced this past week a repressing of the Jaws soundtrack in a blood in the water blue vinyl, and so it's like a translucent blue with like a pool of blood on it, and it looks absolutely incredible. So
that is so like I'm not a vinyl person, but there's maybe two things that they've ever
beautiful.
So good.
This
there's
is
like
Sacred Bone Records, but this was like a limited 300 piece release, and I was like, I'll take one. I should have bought two. One, but
it's so tough too, because I just like a month ago I was like, oh, maybe I should start listening to vinyl, and now like I have probably ordered like 30 or 40 records in the past month, and it's terrible. But now I'm seeing all the like releases that I missed from Mondo or from some of these other companies, and I'm like, oh fuck, like I gotta track some of these down, or hopefully they repress them or something like that. And half of them I'm like, I've never listened to this soundtrack, but it's the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen in terms of the artwwork and the vinyl itself. And so I've spent a lot of money just based on like, this looks cool and I need it.
If you can get a copy of the wait, sorry, Matt. If you can get a copy of Linares Records double Night of the Demons vinyl, the one of the records, well, first of all, it's beautiful, and I can't remember the name of the artist he does a lot of Cavity Colors t-shirts, and he's phenomenal. I think his name's Derek Draws on or Devin Draws on Instagram. He's a fantastic artist. He did like the gatefold and everything for Night of the Demons, and thanks, Matt. But the cool thing about that Night of the Demons double vinyl is that the first like the side A, B are just the instrumental.
Oh, awesome!
Like the actual the original soundtrack, and then the side CD. I don't think it's a full D side, but like the second vinyl is all of the like pop and metal music.
Oh, cool!
In like pop, it's mostly like new wave kind of stuff, and it's really fun. It's a great release. It's probably my favorite release that isn't my favorite soundtrack. If that makes sense. Like I have a Blood Splatter release from Rob, 2012, and that's like my all-time favorite for soundtracks. So obviously that's like the crown jewel for me, but I don't even know who did that. And like I need to get
the Katamari Damacy, that one, Thomas, that looks gorgeous. I think that one's still available actually. I just haven't talked my fiance into letting me buy that one yet, because
she has not to know.
No, like I know she doesn't know a lot though, so I should probably like draw the line somewhere.
So question about Mondo. Because I know that a couple years ago when I was living with my buddy Jeff, he would buy vinyl all the time. Usually like a lot of like random pop punk stuff, and they would send him the vinyl, and then it would still have like a digital download code so he could get the music. Does Mondo do that or no?
I think that probably depends on the release as a whole. The Mondo records that I've purchased recently, none of them have actually shipped to me yet. So the two Mondo records that I have already, though, neither of them came with a download code. But like,
I want Freaked. Like I want to buy the Freaked vinyl, but I want to actually be able to put it on my computer where I can like throw it up.
Because Mondo in charge of the Freaked vinyl?
Yeah, they put out the Freaked vinyl. It looks gorgeous. But
so Linares did, like I said, Linares did that Night of the Demons, and they gave me a digital code for that. Like I think it's company to company, honestly.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that was like just having those songs in general was like the holy grail for me since I was 10. But it's like I don't have a record player.
Channels,
yeah.
No, bad channels.
Mean, neither did I a month ago, and you know, now here we are. You could solve that problem very easily.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
all right,
we
thank
should
you.
have Tom on this episode.
Yeah, damn, Tom.
Tom, you want to be on this episode so I can go away?
So I do want to talk about a little. There's one thing about video games that just happened to pop up in my news feed, and I thought that's fucking gnarly. But the article's like 2-3 months old. Son of a bitch.
That's great.
Son of a bitch. But there's a video game that you can play online called Terror Dome, and it features all of the major horror characters in a Mortal Kombat style gameplay. I'm just gonna scroll through this article.
Can you play it?
Can I ask you a question, Matt?
What?
Did you read the whole article?
No, is it
No. So part of what they've had to do with the latest release, just because as articles like this come out, it gains notoriety and whatnot, is that they've actually had to remove all of the licensed properties that they because they didn't actually have licenses for any of them. So now they have like parodies or mock versions of some of these characters. But apparently, if you find an older version of the game, it'll still have all.
Wait, is that Maniac Cop? Is that
you can
Maniac Cop?
You can play as Maniac
Cop.
God. I'll say it. There's another one that I like. My jaw dropped while I was looking. So I think this is a Freddy versus Freddy battle.
Well, it sounds like such a labor of love too, in that they've designed like levels and backgrounds and move sets for every single character, and it looks like it could be like a legitimate Super Nintendo game or something like that. I think I had read that it was like it's a small team that's been like making this game just as a fan project for like a decade or something. Oh, it says right there, it took a decade to develop.
That is Herbert West as one of the characters that you could play as.
You should probably slap that thing that Tom just said up on the screen.
Speaking of My Little Pony, one of the things I did want to say is that thank you for having me on before Shane O'Hare ever got on this show. It's always been a dream of mine, and that dream comes true today. So, what's that?
Is he a brony?
Oh my gosh, huge brony.
Oh, you can find a video on YouTube that I think Jonathan produced. That was
on the Geekscape TV YouTube channel, him explaining how he made his My Little Pony Rarity cosplay to like a completely disinterested model.
That's my favorite part, is the model who just looks like she wishes she was anywhere else the entire time. It's one of the videos that
like what models look like. I mean, I'm not.
I've been friends with a few, and they look way happier about what they're doing in life than this girl does at any point as she gets dressed up like a pony. But
and it was just like in a garage, so she was probably like nervous.
Yeah, he dresses her up. Maybe. I don't know how that was produced.
I don't know. I'm getting weird vibes. I gotta talk to John about this.
So here's a big question, Derek, because the answer for me is yes, but I don't know about this with you. Are you a pinball guy?
Are you a pinball guy? I know nothing about pinball except every time I make it to an arcade, I drop way too many quarters on those machines, and I'm terrible at it. I think the only pinball game that I ever did well at was the like Space Cadet pinball from Windows 95. I think that was it.
I played a lot of that.
More
of that than I played the Solitaire.
I think that I didn't even know that there was more than one table, because I think I had like a demo version or something. But
more than one table?
Apparently the full release had like 3 tables.
I got really into pinball a couple of years. Well, Scott was at my old house where my roommate had a pinball machine. But
that's fucking awesome. Seriously?
Yeah.
Why did you ever? Why are you not still roommates with him? Free pinball machine.
Oh, dude,
we won't get into
that.
That's
an offline conversation.
Offline conversation. One of my best friends, just not one of the best people to live with. So yeah, he got hard. Like he's like ranked as one of the 100 best pinball players in America now. Along with
Yo-Yo Master, I want you to do me.
He's doing all right for himself in the pinball world. But yeah, they taught me, like, I didn't know this. I was literally just explaining this to someone the other day, that like pinball at one point was going to be outlawed because they considered it a form of gambling, because you were paying money for a game strictly based on luck, and that they had to bring in a guy to perform.
How is pinball based strictly on luck?
Well, that was the thing. They had to bring in a guy to prove that it's skill, as he would like call every single shot that he was about to do. And that's how like pinball didn't get, because they were like, oh, you're gambling in a bar by having a pinball machine in a bar.
Well, I mean, there's a term that I remember from Pickers, American Pickers. Remember that TV show?
Yeah.
They called them
remember it, I'm watching it right now.
Consumer what was it? They had a bunch of like games of chance where you put a penny in or whatever, and they something stimulators, economy stimulators, something like that. I feel like pinball is like the same thing.
Yo, Kate, that pinball machine is fucking awesome.
No, that's second to the Elvira pinball.
Well, there's two Elvira machines. So there's Elvira Party Monsters, which is like kind of based on the movie a little bit. Like if you hit like certain areas, like there's a cooking pot where like a monster will pop out of and stuff like that. But the better one, and the one that I play all the time when we had it at work, was because we had like a virtual pinball machine that had all the real boards in it, was Elvira Scared Stiff, where
Now, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, so there was different triggers in throughout the machine that you had to hit, and it was that on the middle of the board was her entire like 24-hour movie marathon, and you had to activate every single movie, and then that set off the stiffometer in the middle of the board, and you had to like hit the stiffometer a bunch of times without losing your ball.
I feel like there are 3 Elvira machines. I feel like so just before the Canada-US border shut down, I was in Portland, and they have this amazing arcade called Quarter World, which is super weird because they've got like hundreds of games, including pinball machines, but they've all been like augmented, so you don't actually need to use quarters. You just use an app on your phone to like pay for them, like even for these games from the 80s and everything like that. But I think that I played one of the Elvira machines at that arcade.
My favorite one, and my uncle had this pinball machine, the Indiana Jones one, and both of the Elvira ones in his basement when I was a kid. So I would just play these constantly.
Yeah. Also, the Star Wars Episode 1 pinball machine with like the holograms and stuff was like
the one that has the Death Star or the TIE fighters on both sides.
I don't remember. I think it's most.
There's a TIE fighter one. It's not
the
one, but
there's some newer ones
dressed up as Palpatine, playing that game at a friend of mine's
really?
house. This was this was Halloween 3 years ago, I want to say. Yeah, I'd say 3 years ago. Is oh man, like you remember Last Starfighter, the Star Wars wannabe? You know the game that they play that finds them. What's this?
Wasn't it called Starfighter?
Probably, I don't know. It's been a long time.
I assume that's how he became the last one.
List. Okay, it's on my list for the Patreon bonus episodes, and I Tom, back me up, bro. I know he's in the Patreon, but yeah, like there. Okay, that sounds awesome as fuck. But so my pinball experience, recent pinball experience, is that this this couple friend, like the husband and wife couple are friends with my wife and I, and the husband collects, or he fixes pinball machines and then sells and so I mean apparently it's racket, like you can make money on the side from it.
Well, I feel like it must be incredibly complicated too, and I can't imagine there's like tear apart manuals for all of these different machines or anything like that. Like
I don't know, I wonder if there is, or I wonder if they are so similar that once you know a certain company's pinball machines, you can do anything that they did. But
it's true.
There's a place. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say he's the one that owns that Star Wars one, that TIE Fighter one. It's basically like super old school, early 80s pinball, or it wasn't a pinball machine. I'm so sorry. This was actually an arcade game. I'm getting so confused here because he kept that one, and that one has like the very simple polygons of like the TIE
oh
Fighter.
yes.
I was so bad at it, but he had the Hulk pinball machine from the 70s in his garage, where he keeps and fixes up all these vintage pinball machines. And that Hulk one is actually one of the most fun pinball machines I think I've ever played.
Really?
Ironically, it's like one of the 1976 Hulk. It is amazing.
So there's a place maybe 2 hours from where I'm at. It's probably way closer for Marissa or Jackie, in Asbury Park, New Jersey, called I think it's called Silver Ball, and it's a pinball museum, and it's $25 for an all-day access free play in the entire museum of pinball machines. But it's the big experience that I've had with that, which Derek will care about, is that it's literally on the same boardwalk where NXT always has their New Jersey shows.
Oh, really?
So we would buy tickets to go see NXT, but we would make it a day trip and spend the first like 7 hours
That's how I ended up at Quarter World in Portland. Is I went for NXT and ended up at the arcade.
Guys, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not talking about fucking fake sports, all right? We're talking about video games.
But that was when I met Elias was in there playing pinball the one time. But okay, that's the end of wrestling talk. Back to pinball machines.
I was so close to exiting.
I'm done. I'm done. But
so how many of us have been to Portland and played the what's the shit, I'm completely blanking on it. The fortune machine from Big.
Oh god, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Fuck, I can't remember what that thing's called. I'm sure someone is screaming it at us, and hopefully they're also commenting it in the chat.
Yeah, somebody needs to.
In all caps.
But I was gonna say there's the new pinball machine.
Some Star Wars fan is screaming at the screen right now.
But there are
bringing it back to wrestling. Way to go, Thomas.
Stop. All right, no wrestling talk here. All right.
Zoltan.
Zoltan.
Zoltan Speaks. There we go. Zoltan Speaks is also a great song by the pop punk band Neck Deep. If you haven't listened to it.
But yeah, the thing that was cool about like the newer pinball machines, because they're all now like pinball's not as profitable as it used to be. So the people who are making new machines are like just pinball players.
Like all one company now?
It's basically like one company of dudes who were like hardcore pinball players and got sick of pinball machines being so easy and like have like have built
pinball. Have any of us ever beaten a pinball machine?
Oh, fuck no.
So they
I don't have that kind of money.
They produced 2 games that I've played so far, and the one was the Hobbit pinball machine, where instead of flippers and bumpers, you actually had little dwarfs with axes that hit the ball to stop it from draining.
That's adorable.
And then the other one was a Wizard of Oz pinball machine that had magnets built in the middle of the machine for the tornado effect. So at a certain point, you would hit the ball and it would connect to the magnet and then spin around and just fire it in a random direction. Like the shit that they came up with for these new machines is unreal. But Derek, I know Scott and I are both definitely like, if it goes past the Sega Genesis, it's really not speaking our language anymore in video gaming.
Yes, and some PlayStation 1, like Resident Evil 2, I think was the last game that I really played. I played a shitload of GameCube in college. Derek, let's fucking talk about GameCube, bro.
Got some Eternal Darkness going on?
No, what's Eternal Darkness?
Oh, it was like this amazing survival horror game for the GameCube.
I didn't actually play survival horror on GameCube. I was playing so what got me
We just lost your audio, Scott, unless Derek can hear it and I can't.
No, I can't.
Okay.
Still gone.
Still gone. Oh, no.
Oh.
Well, now it says that you're muted.
You want to talk about wrestling while we wait?
Yeah, let's do that.
He's not. He doesn't sound like he's trying to stop us. So
no, I think he's like, yes.
Hear me now.
Oh, there we
go.
Don't lie.
No, we actually couldn't until literally just now, but that's really funny.
That was paused, anyway, thanks, Tom, but no. All right, so super quick chronology of my game playing experience as a young white boy in rural Ohio. So, loved NES. Super obsessed with NES. My two best friends had NESs. God damn it again.
No, I can hear you.
You're good.
Okay, I'm frozen on my side. Anyway, so my two best friends had NESs, so I remember playing the Ninja Turtles game, which was difficult.
Yeah.
Mega Man 2, I want to say, and I don't remember what else at the early days. But then another friend of mine got a Sega Genesis, and he got Sonic 1. And so I was. My dad told me I could not play any video games for a week. I was in trouble. So I don't remember what I did. It's probably something stupid and not worth getting restricted video game playing. And so I was like, okay, no big deal. And then, so I go to a friend's house and he's playing Sonic and I just watch him and I go home and I tell my dad, I was like, this Sonic game is cool. My dad's like, you were watching someone play video games?
Oh my gosh.
It's another week, no video games. I was like, motherfucker. So I played a bunch of Nintendo. I loved the Darkwing Duck game. I loved Cryon Conquest. You ever play that game?
No.
Ooh, Cryon Conquest is so good. It's just a skinned version of basically like Mega Man and Blaster Master, because those are the two most
Blaster Master was sick. I love Blaster Master. Mega Man was always like too difficult, I thought.
Mega Man 3 is my favorite Mega Man, I think. Or Mega Man 2 is the best music. Mega Man 3 has the best like powers. But my all-time favorite Nintendo game is Ghoul School, which is a super obscure game. But I played it as a kid, and then I don't remember what year it was. I think it was like the first or second year that my wife and I were together. We weren't married yet, but she and I were living together, and we got it was our first, I think it was our first Christmas. She found me a cartridge of Ghoul School because she knew how much I loved it, and I've beaten it 3 times. It's the only Nintendo game I've beaten 3 times. So there we go. Yeah, fuck yeah, Ghoul School is so it's so good, so bad. It's like a very difficult game. You can't play it without like a map, you know, like the power, the power map. Anyway, so fast forward a bit to high school. I buy somebody's Sega Genesis for like $20 in all their games. I play that shit constantly. Like, so Sega, or Sonic and Knuckles, and Sonic 3. So those were really good. Because the Sonic and Knuckles, you could like put any of the Sonic games on, and you could then play with Tails.
That was super weird. I wonder how that works still. Not enough to look it up and read about it.
Yeah, like it's one of those things like, oh, that's interesting, but also I don't care.
Yeah.
But then I still have that. I never got rid of that Sega. And Eternal Champions and everything. Didn't think much about it. Go to college, and then my best friend has a GameCube with Metroid Prime, and I'm like, no, yes, okay, I'll play. And so like there's actually a picture of me that I'll try and find for the group maybe later tonight. It's of me like so totally zonked out. Oh yeah, Tom, fuck you. But yeah, so like I played so much Metroid Prime, and then I played both of the Prince of Persias. On
those Prince of Persia games were amazing.
So good with the where you could slow down time.
Yeah.
I actually play games. I play Candy Crush now. I'm like, oh, I wish I could reverse time on but then like I kept I think that we got a oh Jesus Christ, we got a Wii, and I played the
bowling,
the third Metroid Prime.
Oh.
We didn't really play. We played Mario Party 7.
Yeah.
And I played Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, and that's it. That's the last game that I played.
Still the last Metroid Prime game.
There's not a lot of games that I mean, there's not a lot of games that I can talk confidently that I could beat people in, but
Candy Crush is one of them.
Mario Kart on the Wii is one of them. Mario Kart on the Wii.
Mario Kart is my jam.
And Mario Kart Double Dash are like the two that I feel like I could crush it.
The Switch.
What's that?
Yes, there is.
I have played that.
Yeah.
Our little cousin is like our cousin's child. He has a Switch, and oh man, that game's fun. Like I want a Switch, but I also want to like not. I would like to have sex again in my life, and so I know that if I spend all of my time playing fucking Switch, if I get back into playing video games that are not Nintendo, like I have a Nintendo emulator and I have a couple Nintendo actual like top-loading Nintendo players. Those are great because I can spend 20 minutes playing a Nintendo game, and then I'm like, you know what, this is too hard. Fuck this, I'm done. I love Castlevania, but I don't need more than 20 minutes of Castlevania.
Because you'll rip your hair out at that point.
Like 4 hours of Castlevania. And never knowing the feel of a woman's touch ever again. That's basically what being 38 in 2020 is.
So Scott, this is like one of the few things where I can actually brag about being a little bit more.
He touched a woman and played a video game on the same day.
Never quit.
No. So your video game journey began with an NES, but my video game journey began with my dad's hand-me-down Atari that he only had. That he only had a couple games on it. He had.
I don't believe you.
He had the Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and the ET game, and that was basically all I had to play for my first video game experience.
And that's why you don't play video games today.
Oh, dude.
Oh man, Pitfall is great. Was that on Nintendo too? Was that Pitfall, or am I thinking of
Pitfall was on 64. They did like a Pitfall 64 release, I remember.
Oh yeah, I think it was on N64. I think it was on Super Nintendo as well, right?
Probably.
I think that there was a version, yeah.
But I want to talk about that ET game. There's an amazing episode of a podcast that's put on by the Smithsonian Institute called Side Door. And they did one about how the truth versus fiction, or the reality versus like urban legend of the ET game killing Atari. Because if you know anything about the video games consoles before Nintendo really came to the scene, there was the thank you Tom, I've played that SNES version, but the reason I have a Nintendo / horror metal cover studio project is because called Console Crash, is because there was this thing called the Console Crash of 1984, and that's because of the partially in part due to the ET game and the glut of like all of the Atari games, and then like 1985, 86. I think.
Yeah. When the like stories you read about them putting that game together too, like they had like 6 weeks to do it and all this stuff.
They got an interview with the guy who designed it. It's a great episode. Yeah. I absolutely recommend it.
There's a documentary from a few years ago as well that came out about the whole thing. I think it's called Atari Game Over. And it's about this game causing the console crash, basically.
Is that the one where they try to find?
Yeah,
is that the documentary where they try to find the
place in New Mexico or whatever? Where
they find that on Side Door.
Oh, really?
When there are a bunch of people that were there when they dug up the concrete that was covering all of the ET games.
It's like the sarcophagus at Chernobyl or something.
Except it was ET games, yeah. But there's actually one of those ET carts. Yeah, I bet so, Tom, and Matt's as well. But I'm actually 50-50 Console Crash Survivor Girl. I don't know what's in this car right now. But the Smithsonian actually has one of those those ET carts
so cool,
on display. It's an amazing episode. I highly recommend it.
What was the podcast called? What did you say it was called?
Side Door.
Side Door? Okay.
It's one word, I believe. And it's
Did either of you ever watch the show on G4 Code Monkeys?
Yeah.
Nope.
So Code Monkeys, Scott, I don't think you would like it, but it was an animated show that was done completely in 8-bit. Like the whole show was 8-bit animation.
I wouldn't
and
like that.
Just because it's like very aggressive humor, but it was it was about a group of like stoners working in the video game industry during the 80s. But one of the levels one of the episodes is that Steven Spielberg just shows up and drops a bunch of money off for them to develop the ET game, and they just use it on cocaine and hookers, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, that game's due tomorrow, and they just like throw it together real quick.
Well, it's kind of like a tragic thing when you listen to that episode of Side Door, because they had the guy on who made the game, and he designed it all himself, and like he was like under immense amounts of pressure, and people are like, oh, this is gonna be fine, and then it wasn't fine. Obviously, it was like impossible to play. I want to circle real quick back to Ghoul School, because Scott Marshall, I believe, is the name of the guy who did the made Ghoul School from the ground up. He made the gameplay, the sprites, and the music. He did everything basically. And the way that people would like code Nintendo games is so very interesting to me, because I've read tons of articles and read interviews and watched some YouTube like mini docs about it. They had to program in every single like note and this guy who goes by Virt, V-I-R-T, was a video game like a Nintendo, I think maybe SNES composer. I think he's the guy that did. No, I'm sorry. I'm confusing him with Dave Wise. Dave Wise is the guy that did. He did one of my all-time favorite Nintendo soundtracks for Nightmare on Elm Street. He also did the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack.
Oh, really?
SNES, which is that N64?
Super Nintendo.
Yeah, it started for Nintendo, but Donkey Kong had a big 64 version of the game. Yeah.
That's where the DK rap came from, right?
No, that's
it
right,
did.
Yeah. But Dave Wise is an absolute genius when it comes to programming, making the sound chips do things that people had never made them do before, like the sound effects for like the water and like all these things that happen in Donkey Kong Country. Like that stuff is just mind-boggling to me. I would love to just somehow get a hold of Dave Wise, let him know that I think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And yeah, I absolutely love Dave Wise, and I highly recommend anybody go through and just like listen to like Dave Wise's discography from start with Nintendo and go up. Like not all of his Nintendo stuff's great, but like 90% of it's great. All of his SNES stuff's great. But so Matt, I know that we were trying to keep it horror movie night a little bit, and we're already like super
no,
track.
but I wanna actually bounce a question over to Derek, because like, you know, both of us have these interesting journeys of how we became horror fans that led us to a point where we were like, yo, I want to do a podcast about horror movies.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious, like, what was that moment where you were like, what was your first big video game moment? And then beyond that, like, where was the point where you were like, I would be perfectly content talking about video games, not once, not twice, but on 3 different podcasts in your 30 years at this point.
Right. Yeah. I think I lucked out there because my parents are quite young. And so my dad, you know, I feel like still today, less today, but still today, video games are kind of seen as something for young people or for kids. And my parents were pretty young when they had me. And so I just was around like video games and like new wave British heavy metal music for as like long as I can remember type thing.
Wait, put a pin in that for after your story.
So I remember like just being really young and having a Sega Genesis type thing, and and it was my dad's Sega Genesis. It wasn't like oh, you're a kid, here's a video game. Like we had all these like sports games because he loved NHL and football, and you know, I got really into. There was this great hockey game called Mutant League Hockey. I don't know if you ever played that, Scott, but
League have that TV show that was like football in bed.
Did they have a TV show?
I think they did.
Because there were 2 games. There was Mutant League Football and Mutant League Hockey, and they were both just like the EA like Madden and NHL games, but the teams were all like replaced with mutants, and you would try to like kill each other while you're playing, basically, and it was so much fun. I did not realize it was a TV show as well.
Oh, dude, did you ever play Super Spike V-Ball?
No.
On Nintendo.
No.
So when my
that actually sounds familiar. It sounds. Was it like on a
one
beach?
Of those 4-player games. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, maybe.
When my parents bought the Nintendo for my sister and I, they got it. Yes, Mutant League. There we go.
That's a fucking show. Is the game? Are the games based on the show?
I think the show's based on the games, honestly.
That is news.
It doesn't fucking matter. It's the 90s.
And the teams had like the stupidest, like cheesiest names, and it was just like pure gold. Like those games were
like we don't have to like live with that as adults. But the Super Spike V-Ball came on a triple, I think it was a triple cart. When you would buy yeah, John. I hope John doesn't mind that I call him John instead of Jonathan. I'm just lazy. But so when my parents bought the Nintendo, when you would buy different iterations of Nintendo in the like 80s and early 90s, well, mostly 80s, they would have packets, like
totally
packs.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this I remember that they came with 4 controllers and this thing that was like a remote for your controllers. I can see it. It looked like a Tetris piece, and you would plug.
It was like a V or something, right? It was called a multi-tap, so you could plug more controllers.
Yeah, but it looked like a Z, but like this. You know, it was like. Thanks, John. And so the game that I specifically remember was Super Spike V-Ball. There was some soccer game like soccer cup, or I don't remember. And then I think that it actually had Mario 3 on that, or it came with Mario 3, and then those games were a separate cart. But like Super Spike V-Ball is the ultimate NES. I mean, like a lot of people say Tecmo Bowl is the ultimate NES sports video game.
Right.
I mean, like Gator Die is super killer, and Super Spike V-Ball is super killer.
I really loved Super Dodgeball as well. I thought that was a blast.
There was a dodgeball Nintendo game.
Yeah. I don't think it was made by Nintendo, but it was. And then they remade it for like Game Boy Advance like years and years later. But it was just this like super fun competitive game.
Have it.
Yeah. Oh, it's great for sure.
John, read that. Oh, yeah.
Player
John,
4.
I figured as much. All right, so back to your story. Two things. One, so what's your first favorite video game, and what's your most recent favorite game? And I want to talk about New Wave of British Heavy Metal.
The video game that I remember the most, spending the most time with as a kid, there was a Sega Genesis game, and I never owned it. I only would constantly go to the video store and rent the same game over and over again. And it was called Skitchin', and it was by Electronic Arts, and I think it was like a modified Road Rash, which was like this motorcycle racing game.
Road Rash was an awesome game.
Yeah.
So Sega, right?
Yeah. Road Rash was on Sega Genesis.
Wait,
yeah.
So how do you spell that? I want to look it up.
Spell Road Rash?
No, Skitch.
Oh, Skitchin'. So Skitch and then IN on the end. But it was this rollerblade racing game. So you
I saw a dude rollerblade today. Oh my god! Matt, you got to see how, dude. Did you make this video game? Seriously, like. Oh my god.
It looks like I had such good memories of this game, and
man, that is
because you're racing, and it's like you and a bunch of people on rollerblades, and you're trying to like get to the city like faster than the other people, and you can hold on to the back of cars to like go faster, and you can get like nunchucks and stuff to try to like kill people.
Of course, because it's the 90s.
Yeah, it was okay back then. But I remember having such good memories with this game, and then like 2 weeks ago I bought a Sega Genesis Mini because they went on sale, and they're really, really easy to add additional games to, and so
do you download like the games? They're all digitized now. They're not like
so it's like it comes with a set library of like 40 different games, but you can basically like plug it into your computer and in less than 10 minutes put whatever your favorite Genesis games were on it as well. Like it's super easy to do. What's
the price tag on that?
They're like I got mine for like $50 Canadian, so nothing.
Oh, dude. So
yeah. So like $4 American. So
my wife and I went up to Ontario for our vacation last summer, and I spent so much Canadian money.
Yeah.
Like by that I mean I didn't spend that much American money.
Well, and when you like if you use your like credit card a lot, and then you get back home and it's like so much less than you anticipated that you thought you spent. But for me, when I go to San Diego Comic-Con, it's the exact opposite, because I'm like, this was only $70, and then it's actually like $115 or something like that, and I'm like, oh fuck, I spent way more than I budgeted for.
So before we get to the I need to know your most recent, but also, do you have the hookup on a Switch or like?
Oh no, no, those are pretty rough to come by these days.
So I guess
even in Canada,
within the next month or two, if I'm lucky.
Yeah,
Not thanks to me not playing Switch. So most recent game that you have just been in love with.
Yeah, I have spent. It's a very atypical type of game for me, but I've spent a lot of time over the past few months actually playing the latest Call of Duty game. Which sounds, I know it sounds like super.
What's your chest hair look like right now?
I shaved it right before we started. So
it's because like it's just growing so fast. It's like the peanut butter solution on your chest.
By the time this podcast is over, like it'll be sprouting out here. But I actually wasn't into it at all, and I had a friend that was like, oh, he like wasn't going to be working because stores and everything were shutting down, and he's like, we should play a game together, and I'm like, cool, how about this or this? And he's like, how about Call of Duty? And I'm like, I don't want to, but you're sad, so okay. Like, and then I spent like 100 hours on it in the last month. I did mod my Switch. So
Battlefront. Why aren't you just still playing Star Wars Battlefront? Because that shit was awesome.
I never played the new Battlefront actually, and I think I bought it like twice.
It's nerdy enough that you don't feel like a chode for like killing people.
But my favorite types of games are all the like I really like single player story based games. So I'm very much looking forward to The Last of Us 2, which is coming out this Friday finally. That's like a absolutely stellar game. That like the first one is probably one of the best games.
Did you cry when you?
Oh, in like the first 15 minutes of the game, and several other times
like
throughout.
some sort of drama with The Last of Us 2 that people like the alt-right is all mad about?
I don't think so. I think that the biggest drama that I remember coming out of it, and all of the big AAA, like this was worked on for years titles over the past number of years, is like the crunch that a lot of the developers have to go through, and the insane hours that they have to put in. There's a lot of like because there's no unionization or anything of game developers, and I think after Naughty Dog, who's the company that made The Last of Us 2, after their last project, I think everyone that wasn't a creative lead on the game left the company type thing. So a lot, I guess you mod your shit and can't play online with friends because you think you're a hacker. Oh, thanks, John.
I have a question for you also. Have you heard of the game for Switch called oh, thank you, Tom. That's what we're mad about. Have you heard about Sabotage Studio? They make Switch games.
I haven't heard of Sabotage Studio.
Oh,
The Messenger. Yeah.
So I'm friends with Eric Brown, who is a video game composer, as well as he drums in Veil of Nath and what's that pirate theme metal band, and Necrogoblicon. He's an amazing guy, super
Ailstorm.
Ailstorm, thank you. Yeah, he's an Ailstorm. But I met him just randomly because he was coming through my town, and I was like, sure, I'll help book you a show on a fucking Wednesday. And we've been like, casual friends ever since. And the Messenger is basically like, for people that don't know, it's like a Ninja Gaiden kind of game.
Yeah, very Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, it's amazing. And they are doing a new game, and I went on their website to look and see what the new game's called. I can't remember. I can't see it. But they got fully funded. It was like hundreds of thousands of dollars within something like 8 hours, 12 hours.
Jeez. Well, the Messenger was like, I think the Messenger turned out better than, because I don't know what they had done before that, but the Messenger blew up and I think did and was way better than anyone anticipated it to be. Right.
Yeah.
Like I remember the music from that game was fantastic.
Oh, I have it on my phone actually. Yeah. I love the OST. It's super Nintendo.
And just so stylish and was a perfect fit for the.
And he does everything through Famicom. Or I think he might not do Famicom anymore. I think he actually programs and then puts it through his Game Boy.
That's so cool. Yeah,
he's like super analog with it because he knows how to do it, and I wish I did. I'm so jealous. But yeah, I love Eric Brown, and he's doing the soundtrack for that new game that Sabotage Studio is
cool. Yeah,
so that's why I brought it up.
All right, so while we're talking about music, let's jump to Scott's last question, which is your favorite 80s new wave British heavy metal.
I think that I just have always had a very soft spot for Judas Priest, as that's always been like, that's my dad's like favorite band of all time, and so it was like always playing in the house when I was growing up.
Dad's cool as fuck.
he used to draw comic books in the 90s. What it was a very, very small imprint that did not last very long, called Diversity Comics, but they apparently did okay in like Europe. But it's interesting listening to him tell these stories because, at the time, of course, the internet was basically non-existent. And so he was did I say draw? If I had said draw, I meant write. But he wrote the books and then would, he wrote the books. He would mail them to like this other dude that was somewhere else, like physically mail the like, who would draw them, who would then mail them back or mail them to like the printers or whatever, and
probably who would have to ink it. Oh man,
yeah, like it was so it sounds impossible compared to how that must come together these days, type thing. But so like a lot of the like I'm into computers, I'm into video games, and some of the musical tastes. My musical tastes are very varied now, but some of those earliest things were definitely just like, these were the CDs that were in the house, and he would get new CDs from like Columbia House like every week type thing, and so I would just benefit from all of that stuff. So so
here's my favorite thing about all the information, because I've never known any of this about Derek.
You never asked.
But my favorite thing is that you're like, I had young parents as a kid, so like I'm assuming I'm assuming
They're
like
old now, but you know, they
but
were
no,
young
but
then.
I'm assuming like early 20s is like my ballpark
Like my
guess.
mom right now is like 45.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what's
She had
amazing?
you at 15?
Yeah.
Well, her birthday's this month, so she was 16 when she had me. But yeah,
So
yeah.
so
Still
my
young.
favorite
Okay,
thing about that story is anybody who's listening to us who's a teenager, you can listen to heavy metal, play video games, and draw comic books and still get laid. So like,
in the early 90s, not necessarily now.
Don't you have like isn't that stuff cool now? Don't you have a better chance of getting laid now? If you're into that stuff.
I told my wife's, who was my girlfriend before she was my wife, obviously.
Thanks for clearing
she's
that up.
actually my ex-girlfriend, if you think about it, which
Oh.
is pretty funny. I was a little nervous to tell her that I was in a metal band because there's a story. The girl that I dated right before Megan, the last one I dated before Megan. So she came over to my house, and I had just lost my job, and I was going to move back in with my parents while I looked for a new job, and I was like leaving my apartment, blah blah blah, and so like not a good fucking look, right?
Just on Skid Row there. Great album.
I was like 25. My life was falling apart, and I was rebuilding. And obviously, like it worked out for the best. But she came. This girl that I liked, she came over, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm in a band." And she thought that I was just in a band. Because I had no job, and I was moving back with my parents, and she thought that I had a metal band. And like, I was like, She told me this after the fact that she thought that it was cute. And she was like, you were too attractive for me to call it a deal breaker. I'm like, that's sweet, but also like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't even realize that I was coming off this way. So I was very hesitant to tell my ex-girlfriend, now wife. She stopped being my girlfriend. She became my ex-girlfriend and became my wife in 2011. So, I was like hesitant to tell her when we first started talking that I was like, yeah, I have a band, because everybody's like, oh, you're a metal band. You probably never touched a woman's breast. It's not like Motley Crue era. I was in a death metal band, like not trying to get hot women at shows. And so the best thing about and I was also doing falsettos, like Judas Priest, Rob Halford, huge influence for me. I love like 3 Inches of Blood. They're a Canadian band.
Love 3 Inches of Blood.
Oh man, probably the pinnacle. One of 3 pinnacles for me was in my decade tenure in a death metal band with falsettos was opening for 3 Inches.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah. Well, I opened for them twice, but one was a separate. Like there were 2 stages. But the show that I opened for them right before, like specifically on the same stage, was when they're actually touring. Are you familiar with their later material? Or you just
no, they're late. No, probably.
Do you know like Advance and Vanquish, which was their big? That was their first, like it was their second record, their big label debut. I think that was on Metal Blade.
I think it was like
it had Deadly Sinners on it.
The album that had Deadly Sinners on it, and like Follow the Mountain King was them too, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, no, it was it's Forest King, and that was on Fire at the Blades, which came out in 2007. I opened for them when they were touring for Fire at the Blades. They were on a separate stage, but I remember Cam Pipes, the falsetto singer, because they had 2 singers, Matt, just so you know. Cam came in while we were playing, and this was before I was doing falsettos in the band. Congratulations, Tom. But yeah, so Cam came in and gave me the head nod when we were playing, which was like I got so rock hard. And then they were touring for the record after that when we opened for them on the same stage, and it was super super fun. Cam watched half of our set, which is a lot, because when we're a touring band, like they may come watch an opening band play 30 seconds and then like, fuck it, I'm going back to the green room to drink 5 beers. But 3 Inches of Blood is probably one of my ultimate what's the fucking word, man? I'm blanking. They inspired me. So
influences.
Influences. Thank you. But they are fed by Rob Halford and Judas Priest, and like I love Judas Priest, but I think the Judas Priest was just not quite, didn't have that hard edge on the guitar that I loved so much. So like Painkiller is a great record, but it's also like 4 good songs,
Sure.
And the rest is kind of filler. Did you? I think Annihilator was a Canadian band. Did you ever listen to Annihilator?
It sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you.
I think I'm gonna have to send you the Alice in Hell record. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, it's called Alice in Hell, and that came out in like '92. Great fucking record. You would absolutely love it if you love like new wave British heavy metal. It's thrash, but it's like the shit that you love about new wave British heavy metal, but just sped up a bunch.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so that was your favorite band, but also I need to know what your favorite Priest song is, and also if you like Iron Maiden, and if so, what's your favorite Iron Maiden song?
I was more of a Metallica guy than an Iron Maiden guy.
Okay, so you can tell me your favorite Metallica song too. And it better not be Fuel.
Saint Anger. No.
Wait. I can make the sound.
I really liked I think Sanitarium.
Oh, dude, Master of Puppets in general.
Pretty much that whole that was the album that I loved the most from them for sure.
I'm more of a Ride the Lightning guy myself.
Okay, yeah.
Just because like the songs are shorter. You know,
yeah.
I love.
Battery's my fucking shit, dude. Battery is
that your favorite Metallica song?
No, because my favorite Metallica song is on Reload because I'm a loser. Memory Remains. I love Memory Remains.
I like Junior High Time. It's fine.
I feel like that's the last legitimately great Metallica song is Memory Remains.
I've heard that their newest album is quite good. I've not listened to it, but I
listened to some of it. It's not bad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just
that was like my first big concert when I was like 14 was Metallica on the Saint Anger tour, and Godsmack opened for them. Yeah. I was 14. I didn't have a lot of options. Okay.
To answer your Iron Maiden, well, you know the answer to the Iron Maiden question because it's the only one that I'll ever sing every once in a while.
But you have to tell everybody else.
Can I play with madness?
Oh yeah, dude. I think the Aces High might be my favorite. I also love Montsegur and oh man, like Ride of the Ancient Mariner is 13 minutes long and it still keeps my attention. Like there's so many Iron Maiden songs, but no good Iron Maiden records. It's so like I might be blasphemous, but we
still need Derek to answer the Judas Priest question.
We're getting there. I just wanted to say that I'm working on this music that's supposed to be a ripoff of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for Chris LaMartina for his WNUF Halloween Special Part 2. And it started out ripping off Power Rangers, and it is now far more like an Iron Maiden song. So it's actually it's way more my shit. But so yeah, Derek, hit us with some hits, please.
Yeah, it's been a little while, but I think like Heading Out to the Highway was always just like a classic for me.
Really?
Electric. Yeah, I don't know why, but when
Electric Eye, I heard you say Electric Eye.
Electric Eye was coming up next. Okay. Yeah, Electric Eye. I loved Electric Eye.
We covered that in my metal band.
Oh, really?
And it was, oh man, we did the Green Monolith sheet into Electric Eye because you have to have that intro. Shut up,
this
John.
Is a damn rabbit hole. I mean, like to bring it back to horror for a second, like I feel like horror in video games, for instance, to just pair the two together, there's so much of that, and I think it died for a while, but it's really come back. Like why, for instance, Scott, who's had a lot more gaming, not a ton, but a lot more than Matt, it seems like has. Why have you guys not ventured into like horror games at all?
Because I can't handle the stress as an adult, man.
Yeah. And do you guys like how into like obviously the show is very like the show being horror movie night is very focused around like campy and older things, but do you find that same stress with like newer horror movies like
oh yeah, that's why we have like a 10-year rule.
Yeah, I know about the 10 years. I've suggested many things, and Matt's like, "Fuck no, it's not 10 years old." So
yeah, well, because like
that's a soft rule. It's not.
It's a soft rule. But I think that the rule is essentially we either discuss it when it's in theaters or just drops on streaming, or like the big exceptions that we've done are like when the movie definitely should have been a much bigger success. Like when we
Zombie
did
U was
Final
great.
Girls. When we saw like Final Girls, we're like, how is no one talking about this? We have to do this episode. And there's been like a few of those every once in a while where it's like, what?
Patchwork. I think that was 2 years old.
Patchwork, yeah. Patchwork was another one where like, why aren't people talking about Patchwork? I was thinking about this because I'm like, I think I've only ever really truly played 2 horror games because I wasn't that big of a gamer. And one is like a legitimately scary game, especially like when I was playing it as a kid. And then like one is campy. And this is like ignoring like arcade games. Like I'm not counting like going and playing Area 51 in an arcade or something. Right, but like Resident Evil 2, I got fucking deep into, and like playing that at like a friend's house at midnight with all the lights off in the basement is like a fucking terrifying experience the first time.
Well, and like now that you're older too, there's a fucking remake of that game and it's amazing and it looks beautiful and you're missing out on it.
Yeah. But then the other one is obviously
you're not missing out. Your nerves do not want it at all.
But then the other one is what I bring to every convention is Zombies Ate My Neighbors. I absolutely adore that game. I think it's one of the most perfect games. If there was ever a game that like I would love to see get made into a movie, and I know that they've been trying to make it into a movie for years, it would be Zombies Ate My Neighbors because it would just be such a balls to the wall movie.
Right.
Yes, John, I would consider Cock Shark a scary game. But wait, maybe not scary. Maybe just another S word that ends with XE.
Well, and I feel like a lot of times in most cases like the horror games are single player games, which like the horror genre is probably one of my favorite genres of games. But I also feel that stress, and I feel like there's like a lot of the more modern games I can only play in like 20 or 30 minute chunks, so it takes me like a year to finish them type thing, because Until Dawn is campy as shit. Like you guys would fucking love that.
What's that on?
That's on PS4.
I'm not gonna buy a PS4.
They're cheap now. They're like 100 years old.
Well, here's the thing: is I don't have like a regular TV set up anywhere.
So
like
Scott,
I'd have to. There's so many things about my life that I have to change to play games again, unless I can just play emulated versions of 8-bit games on my computer.
So Scott, question, because I know that you've been doing which I think is such a cool project, and I will always find a way for us to talk about it. But your fake video game box art.
Oh, those you've posted a few of those, I think, right? Those have been very cool.
So
has there ever been? Because I just thought about this in my head. Has there ever been a Monster Squad video game? Because I think that you're the man to make the box art for it.
Yes, John, I do want to switch. And I think that Monster Squad needs to be in my second round of those video game covers or those video game boxes. There's also, if we could like crowdfund this, because I honestly don't have the scratch to pay a developer to make it. I mean, it could be easy. You could just reskin a game. Like you could reskin a boy in his blob and it would be amazing. Yes, Tom, I would play the fuck out of Dig Dug. But like, here's the thing is that I would absolutely love a Monster Squad game. Just reskin another game, like get the code. I can't do this. It's just not my bailiwick. But like I would love a Monster Squad game that would be playable on like an emulator or online or something like that, or on Switch. I mean, like it wouldn't be Switch because you'd have to go through all the rigmarole.
Because I'm thinking about like there's so many cool levels that you can literally do a level just based on being on the truck trying to get the mummy's wrap around an arrow. You know what I mean? Like there's so many scenes in that movie that would play out well as video game segments that it's unreal.
If I can get like $1,000, I can pay a developer to make it, and then we can all play. And John, I did not.
I don't think you know how much video games cost to make.
Would you say, John? Or would you say, Derek?
I said I don't think you know how much video games cost to make.
Well, I'm saying like I think $1,000 or $2,000 is an exceptional amount of money for some random dude to just grab the code, reskin.
Okay, all right.
I know how much it costs to make the sprites. I honestly do, because I had dudes
just
on
go
Fiverr make the sprites, and they made them for nothing. So it's not hard to make the sprites. It's literally just like I can
putting
make
it
music.
together.
I don't give a fuck. Like I just need a developer to make the gameplay and like like $2,000. Let's say $2,000. I bet Horror Movie Night could raise $2,000 to make a Monster Squad homage.
I bet we could probably get our buddies in the Monster Squad to help promote it and get way more. It's not like we're not.
Then let's have a $5,000 budget.
I should just text them. I'll shoot them a text, be like, "Hey, we're thinking about it. There should be a Monster Squad video game. You want to help us make it?"
It has to be 8-bit though. It's not because it came out in '87.
Yeah.
So I mean,
hit up Andre. Hey.
Derek, here's a fun story you don't know about is that I almost beat my pants because Matt got me in contact with Andre Gower from Monster Squad. And
Derek was there when it happened.
I know that, but like he got me in contact with him, and I almost beat my pants because I called Andre. Andre called me, and then I called him back. Shut the fuck up, Tom. Okay. Anyway, so off topic. So
is there a topic?
Yes, Andre Gower called me back. I pick up the phone and I'm like pissing my pants, not literally, because I'm talking to the dude that I've watched on Monster Squad like 20 times, and he's like, I really like your cover of Rocket to You Drop.
Oh shit!
I want to put it in the Wolfman's Got Nards doc, and I was like, yes, please. And then they couldn't find the fucking rights.
Yeah, no one knows who owns the rights to the song.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that was the saddest. Shut the fuck up, John. You guys, I swear to God, you guys make fun of me 13 or 14 more times. I'm out of here. Anyway, so I don't even know what we were talking about.
Well, I want Derek to give us some recommendations.
Yeah, Derek, recommend us some video games.
Yeah, I mean, like
let's talk about some horror movies that you like as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like PS2 is real, PS5's coming out. PS2s are real cheap these days. Ooh. Like, I can't believe like you guys have missed out on games like Silent Hill 2, which is just, I mean, has inspired a lot of horror films over the years, but especially being such like a music.
Silent Hill's a fun horror movie.
Yeah. Let's just not talk about the second one. But like, especially being such a music guy, Scott, like the soundtracks and the composer of Silent Hill 2 and I think up to Silent Hill 4, like those are his name's Akira Yamaoka. And like the Silent Hill 2 soundtrack. Just coincidentally, like the week I decided to get into vinyl, Mondo decided to repress the Silent Hill 1 and 2 soundtracks, and that was like the most excited I've fucking been about anything.
Did you buy it?
Oh yeah, right away. Yeah, they've.
Is it two separate vinyls?
Pardon me, sorry.
Is it like a gatefold or is it two separate vinyls?
Gatefold. So it's both Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2 soundtracks. They're both 2 discs, but they're both gatefolded, and I think they're doing the later games as well. They just haven't released them yet. But like amazing soundtracks like that. That was I played that game when I was like 12 or 13, and that was like I think the game that really got me into like survival horror, just because it's so slow moving. It's such a slow burn, but it's so atmospheric, and especially with things like the music and everything like that. And it was just like nothing that I had played before. And I think after that was the point where I was like, oh, this shit is this is my game. And now the series doesn't really exist anymore, but but it had some good years and some bad years. But there you go. I mean, it burned out first, and and now doesn't exist anymore. I mean, there was like, I don't know if you guys heard of PT or Silent Hills, which was this Guillermo del Toro and Norman Reedus and some manga guy and Hideo Kojima and some manga guy that was supposed to design these monsters. It was a number of years ago, and it was supposed to be this resurgence of this amazing series that turned into absolute shit, and then then was going to come back by the guy that created like Metal Gear Solid, which is one of the most celebrated series ever. And then they had a falling out, and it disappeared and got canceled, and they haven't done anything with the series since. And that was like 5 years ago at this point. So it's a very interesting history.
And in video game time, that's pretty much dead.
We can put the casket cover.
Yeah. And then randomly, there's this multiplayer game actually called Dead by Daylight, which has.
We know about Dead by Daylight.
Yeah. So Dead by Daylight is actually today. The Silent Hill DLC popped into Dead by Daylight, which doesn't make any sense for a series that Konami has not done anything with in as long as they have. Like the last main series game was like 2012 or 2013 or something like that. So.
Oh shit! Tom called you out. I even know him. Wow, dude.
Does he do manga? Does he do manga?
Yes, he's not just
so he's a manga guy
who hates Japanese
I
culture.
just like
it's not I just hate fucking anime. He did Spiral, which is the greatest fucking horror manga ever.
All right, so to the last question, as Scott asked, what is like some of your horror stuff that you grew up on? Because if I recall correctly, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like I remember you weren't like the world's biggest horror fan, but you kind of got into it from listening to Horror Movie Night a little bit.
I think I got back into it. Like growing up, I having young parents, like I also had like a young uncle that I would always like hang out with and like have sleepovers at their house. And he would always like rent these, we would just go to the video store and rent these like horror movies all the time. So like, I remember watching just like for some reason, the one that stands out from when I was really young was People Under the Stairs. And like the bathtub scene where she's like throwing like boiling water or whatever it was on her. I haven't seen it in years now, but that was like the one where I was like, what the fuck is this? What is this shit? And I was like, and then I like, now it's like one of those things where probably the movies I gravitate most, even without things like Movie Pass, which doesn't exist anymore, obviously, or the Regal shit that you've got down there, Matt. Even without that, like I would go to the theater so often, and half the time, Michaela, my partner, would argue with me that like we don't need to spend money on that shit, and I'm like, this movie looks fucking awful, and I need to see it right now. And most of the time, that would be horror movies, and I've only really regretted it a few times because I feel like I have that appreciation for that like drivel that often comes out, but. Aside from stuff like Truth or Dare from a couple of years ago, which was I walked out of and was like,
is that the one that has Jeffy Combs in it?
No. Oh wait, are you? No. You're talking about the one where like from like 2 years ago where it's a haunted. Yeah. The one that I saw that was like, yo, it was dumb as shit. But watching it with like the only thing that got me through that movie was I was watching it in a theater that was packed with high schoolers.
Oh,
and
okay.
like.
Yeah. I think like me and Michaela were like the only two people in the in the place, and it's the closest I've come to walking out of a movie in a very long time.
The only way you can get through that movie is like living vicariously through the high schoolers that are screaming at everything, because it's like, well, this movie's dumb as shit and I don't care, but they're having a good time, so I'm gonna like vicariously have like a good time and just like
their adrenaline.
Kind of like it was like, hey, this is dumb as shit, but I bet that if I was 16 and me and my friends like went to this on a Friday night, we'd be like just screaming and yelling and having a good time with it too, because it's just dumb.
I gotta bring this up though. Is like I'm thinking back to when I was that age, and I would go see All Hands, and that movie fucking ruled.
Yeah,
it's ruled.
I
remember. Did people like that our age? That are our age, like, so people in their 30s back in like the late 90s think that Idle Hands was stupid.
I don't know, but I snuck into Idle Hands because I was too young to buy a ticket. Please don't.
I think the first movie that I had to like sneak into, because I was like 13 and it was 14A we have in Canada instead of PG-13, but it was like Gothica with like Halle Berry or something.
Yep, I know the cover of that. She's like,
yeah. But and it had the Limp Bizkit song Behind Blue Eyes, that cover.
So I remember with the Idle Hands specifically, it was every Friday night. It was my friends Tom and Jesse, who longtime listeners will remember their names as the guys who got me kicked out of Scream 3 by not looking like adults. But we went and saw Idle Hands. And at the time, we went to the AMC near me. And at the time, AMC had a large soda that was like a fucking KFC bucket of chicken size of soda. And if you could finish the soda,
that's a small now, right?
Yeah. If you could finish the soda, you get a free refill, which was the dumbest idea that they've ever had at the movie theater. Because what my friend Jesse would do is get the large soda and then pour it on the seat in front of him so no one would sit in front of him during the movie, and then go get a refill with the soda that he actually wanted to drink. But I remember distinctly that we snuck into Idle Hands, and it was just the three of us and then one other guy who walked into the theater and tried to sit right in front of Jesse. And he just goes, "Oh, son of a bitch," and like got up and walked to the other side of the theater.
How have you never told me this story? This is an amazing story. We've been podcasting weekly for fucking
7 years, 7 or 8. Yeah.
8 years easily.
Hey, always surprises. I got to keep them in the back chamber. But yeah, I always remember that is like my memory of Idle Hands. But we loved it then, and we still love it now. But Idle Hands, like that movie was like unfortunate because it came out like the week after Columbine, so like nobody wanted to advertise any like teenager murdering other teenagers movie at that point. But yeah.
Awkward.
So Derek, what was the, so you said Truth or Dare was the worst one where you like almost walked out, but like what was, because you said that we helped get you back in, like what was the big, like was Hereditary it? Like what was the big one where you're like, ooh, I've missed it?
I feel like I honestly I probably couldn't tell you. Like I've been more into it for longer than things like Hereditary have been out. But I don't know, I love new shit, so I gravitate towards all the new titles. So I've like loved things like the Conjuring series, aside from the first Annabelle, and it has like,
Conjuring is a really scary movie.
Yeah, well, and even La Llorona wasn't great either, but like I just that universe, and I love that like shared universe aspect of it, where they can fan off and tell these other stories, and even like Ouija 2,
which I heard was like good, weird,
fantastic. The first one was like god awful, like almost couldn't finish it. Second one was fantastic. Like it's super good.
I gotta watch it.
Yeah,
I've heard that from so many people.
Yeah, like I have no idea how it could share a similar title. Like it's so different from what the first movie was.
I heard that with the second Annabelle too, right? Like
the second Annabelle was like the first one was god awful, the second
good.
one was very good, and then the third one was like whatever. But
so this is like a funny side story, but I produce a podcast for my sister Julie, who is like, she's not a horror person. She hates horror movies. It freaks her out. And the second episode of her podcast was her best friend, who's now like her permanent co-host, Kathleen.
Yeah,
had her watch the first episode of Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, I love Haunting of Hill House.
And Julie watched it 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning and was still terrified by it. So we finally, like all these months later, have finally gotten her to watch it. And like I keep saying, there's this jump scare. It is like the best jump scare I've ever seen in anything. It's so good. I think
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. She's been texting me every night. And it's like, was it the scene with the chandelier? No, that's not the jump scare I'm talking about. Like,
I haven't watched the show and I even know what the fuck.
But
I cannot wait for the Haunting of Bly Manor. Like the first season was just spectacular, and just such an interesting like family drama, but also with all the ghosts and stuff and everything.
Scott,
like
are you gonna? I know you didn't watch the first one, but are you gonna watch the second one since it's based on the Turning of the Screw? I know that's like a favorite of yours.
The Turning of the Screw by P.D. James. Not P.D. James. P.D. James did Children of Men, whatever it is. Andrew James, it doesn't matter. That book is great, and I have never once seen a good film adaptation, and I don't think that this show is going to be the start of it. So I haven't watched Haunting of Hill House because
I think that the second season is based on a number of that author's stories, not just the Turning of the Screw, but also
Andrew Burgess. It doesn't matter.
But also like with someone like Mike Flanagan like overshadowing it, like what have you guys loved what
dude, he everybody thinks that his name is like gold, and he doesn't have a perfect track record. He's not batting like 1,000.
Like what haven't you like I love stuff like Dr. Sleep last year, of course, and even going back to stuff like Oculus was very interesting. Like what has
I loved Hush. Hush was the one that like grabbed my
attention. Was awesome. Yeah, I loved Hush. Hush was just so unique in terms of the like home invasion.
Oh, I was so
type thing with the.
And that's the thing. Like, I was thinking about this the other day because like I feel like we talk about this a lot on Horror Movie Night, where we say like, yeah, like I'm just not that into zombie movies, or I'm not that just that in, but I think that every genre usually has one or two outliers where it where I'm like, okay, but what I mean, like Scott with like, he's not that big of a zombie guy, but like if Return of the Living Dead is on a television set, like there's nothing that's like, I mean,
if anything from Reanimator's on, but I'm watching for Jimmy Combs, I'm watching it for Linnea Quigley, there are things like, but survival horror is a little different, but like I'd say I'm looking at Mike Flanagan's IMDb, and there's a lot more bad than good, but he did Ouija Origin of Evil. He wrote it.
Oh shit, he did.
He did Absentia, which I really like. Absentia.
Okay.
Have you seen Absentia?
No. But I
we
will
did
now.
that for we did that for Reddit Horror Club. That was like right towards the end of Reddit Horror Club.
I think that's either on Shudder or Hulu. I can't remember. But like honestly, if I'm looking at the rest of his stuff, I don't really like most of what he's done. I mean, he's very hit or miss for me. I don't love Mike Flanagan. He, as a producer, I think that I see him as more of a liability.
Okay.
Just when he puts his name on something, but that happens to everybody who gets me for doing horror in Hollywood.
Yeah, right.
But like I just think that for me, horror TV has to be a little more bombastic. Like the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show is hard to top because that's like the best horror TV I can imagine. Because
what about stuff like Channel Zero and stuff? Did you like Channel Zero?
I watched the first. I think I watched 2/3 of the first season of Channel Zero, and it doesn't really do it for me.
That was the pirate, the pirate show, right?
Yeah, pirate or Candle Cove.
Candle Cove, yeah.
And I want to watch the one with Rutger Hauer in it. I think that was season 3, but
and No End House, which I think was season 2, was quite interesting as well.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea, but the problem that I have with horror TV is that they drag it out into like 12 episodes or something like that. But I loved Shudder's Dead Wax series, which was only 6 10-minute episodes or something like that, or 6-minute episodes, and it was really, really cool. In that sense that it's like very palatable, where it's like short, and you can enjoy it fast. Like that's what I love about What We Do in the Shadows, do the TV show. They're 22-minute episodes, and you can just eat it up real fast, and it's really good. I love horror TV when it's done in a funny way, but like Haunting of Hill House doesn't do it for me because. Or any of the American Horror Stories, including.
I was going to say American Horror Story feels like that, where it's always very. It feels much longer than any of it needs to be.
Scream Queens, like I loved season 1 of Scream Queens, but I got annoyed.
I stopped watching season 2, but after loving season 1,
I don't think that we finished season 2 either. Like I love the characters, I love Jamie Lee Curtis, and I love the jokes, but there's just it's they're trying to spread it out over too long, in my opinion. But Ash vs. Evil Dead is one of the only TV shows where they can get away with that. Matt, were those 22 or 44-minute episodes?
Those were 22, but there's another one.
Matt's gonna tell me what I'm forgetting, but like,
he's like, I can't just say it; I have to show you.
I'm not. Those are 22-minute episodes, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and that's also comedy. Like it's
a Canadian show.
And it's metal and.
Derek, was that show like massive where you're at?
No.
Okay.
I don't think that it ever made much of a splash, man.
No.
But if you don't get if you have Shudder and if you have not gotten a chance to watch Todd and the Book of Pure Evil, so fucking funny.
Yeah, it's like all the things that you like, Derek. It would be such a Derek show.
Yeah.
But Scott, real quick before we start to wrap up, Henry James. Henry James was the name we were looking for.
Oh, I was close with P.D. James.
I was gonna say P. James was Children of Men, right?
Yeah, PJ, was Children of Men. All right.
Before we start to wrap up, one thing that I wanted to ask you guys, being so much more versed in horror, obviously, what are some of like your favorites in terms of the last few years that people like me may not have seen, who typically would gravitate just towards the mainstream stuff that I can see in a theater?
Well, I know I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet, but I know Scott, in a very future episode, gave a lot of praise to Daniel Isn't Real. That's on Shudder.
Oh, dude, yeah, Daniel Isn't Real is super good. I had really, really low expectations. I pushed it off for months, and it was awesome, so good. Is that a 2020 movie, Matt, or is that 2019?
I mean, festival's 2019, mainstream 2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian just sent me Becky, which was awesome. But that caught me off guard on how much I liked.
I'm just writing these down. I'm not ignoring you guys.
Derek, I would say put The Headhunter on.
The Headhunter, yeah.
List. That movie was so good. I think that was my number 1 of 2019, along with Mom and Dad.
Mom and Dad was a big one that you loved from last year.
And The Color Out of Space. Nick Cage at his most unhinged.
Oh, I've heard that's really interesting.
Really fun. Really fun stuff. And there was something that was like a
Hell House LLC
Another-
3.
No.
I didn't
No, I'm just
mind
kidding.
Hell House.
I love the first one actually. I really love the
one was
first one.
good.
But
I liked it. John, tell your friend Adam that he fucking killed with Daniel Isn't Real. I was not expecting to like it at all.
he's way better than Mike Flanagan.
Ooh, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I will say a big one, and obviously a friend of the podcast who, like we probably talked about his movie 4 times last year at least, is You Might Be the Killer. If you haven't taken the time to watch You Might Be the Killer,
Dude, You Might Be the Killer is so good.
It's one of the best meta horrors I've seen in a really long time.
I remember you guys talking about that, and I got super interested in it, and then I forgot about it. So that one's definitely, I'll watch it.
Oh, and also a friend of the podcast is what's her name that did shit, it was the out of the Matt the July 4th
shit, what was that called? Shocks something.
No,
yeah,
it's Sol Guerrera.
Gigi
Guerrera.
I have to look up what the name of that was called, though.
Yeah, but that was a really great Into the Dark. That's probably the only Into the Dark I'd recommend.
It is a perfect 100% on Rotten Tomatoes still. After all this time, it's the only thing that Into the Dark ever did that had that high of a score.
Into the Dark, is that the like monthly?
Yeah, it's the monthly Hulu
Didn't
one.
it's fucking you guys and all your different streaming services? Shit doesn't exist here.
Well, the one thing I will tell you,
Culture Shock.
Culture Shock. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Derek, watch Ready or Not if you haven't. Samara Weaving. So
that was
the
other one.
Loved Ready or Not. Ready or Not was so fucking good.
Scott, so I think you and I may have talked about this off the air, but like my interest in a Scream 5 was very low until I heard it was going to be done by the people who did Ready or Not. And I'm like, well, you've got my interest a little bit, because like they know how to juggle horror and comedy. They know how to tackle. Yeah, they know how to tackle social issues in a horror movie, and they know how to write a badass female lead. So, like, all things considered,
I'm holding my interest until I see a trailer. Like, I'm super, super, super jaded. Like, I will only give about a movie because I see a trailer.
So I will say real quick, just looking at some of the stuff that I did do interviews for at Fantastic Fest, because that's where I found a pretty decent amount of stuff.
Yeah.
The only other ones that I wanted to mention are After Midnight, which is a really good fun time. Brian went and saw Vast of Night. I know Jonathan also saw Vast of Night at a drive-in and both reported good times. Brian got to see the Mortuary Collection at a drive-in, which is also a really fun anthology film from last year. So those were like the big ones from the festival scene that I was like all in on. But yeah, I mean,
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark actually existing and being good last year. Like that was, I remember, like, I think that was probably a like kind of a Kickstarter for me too, is I just remember taking that out from the library over and over and over again, just because it was like, or to like show friends I hadn't read it yet, because just obviously, what is it, Stephen Gamel's illustrations were just insane in those books, and the stories were great too, but to see some of those creatures on the big screen was fucking amazing.
That's what's his name, Cabrera, the guy that did that spectral oh god damn it, whatever they are. I think it's actually called Spectral. They're the company that did like all the Guillermo del Toro practical effects, and they're just amazing. But one other the mentioning After Midnight, Matt, I would absolutely recommend, Derek, you and your fiance partner watching together. She's not a horror lady, but it's a great movie.
I talk her into it.
2014, I want to say it is. It's gonna be my V-Day pick for 2021, regardless of if Matt wants me to or not. One of the best horror movies I've seen in a long time. It's really, really, really.
I have seen none of these that I've written down, so I'm very excited.
And I'll steal, just to wrap it up, I'll steal it's something that Scott will talk about in a future episode, but it's just in future for a conversation that's important right now. two really important documentaries that are available right now. I've watched one of them so far. I'm going to watch the other one very soon. But Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, which tackles a lot of interesting, important topics about homophobia in Hollywood and in the horror industry. And then Horror Noir, which just tackles a lot of the racism in horror and building off of that. And I will say that something that we've talked about a ton, and it's still a really, really important movie, is if you haven't watched Tales from the Hood yet, like make that a must watch. It is powerful. It tackles big issues, but it does it in a fun enough way that you also don't feel like you're just being sat down and like beaten with just 90 minutes of depression. They keep it fun and gory and all the things that you look for in a horror movie, but very smart and socially conscious while doing it. But before we sign off, Derek, tell everybody where they can, if you ever decide to podcast again, where can they go and check that stuff out?
I mean, Geekscape.net is the easiest thing to say, but you can look for Xbox Game Passengers wherever you get your podcasts, and Let's Play Arcade, which is a similar show about Apple Arcade. Again, wherever you get your podcasts. They will come back. Matt has agreed to be on the first episode of the returning Xbox Game Passengers show. So as soon as I finish with The Last of Us 2, we can get in on that.
All right. Sounds good. Because I still haven't figured out how to cancel my Xbox Game Pass. So if I'm paying $10 a month, I might as well do something with it. All right. Well, thank you, Derek.
Thank you guys for having me. That was great.
Scott, you got anything that you want to mention or promote real quick?
I am so spent, bro. Oh, I have done a bunch of video game covers. If you want to listen to them, they're on consolecrash.bandcamp.com for free.
All right. Thank you so much, Scott, as always. And finally, myself, if you go and you check out Horror Movie Night, we've got a new episode coming out on Thursday, which I will whisper into the mic as we wrap up. Also, today we dropped an episode of my favorite episode of that is a full season 2 recap of the Dead to Me season that just dropped on Netflix. It's not really a full recap because we failed to get through the recap. It took us 45 minutes to just recap what was happening because we got distracted, because that's what happens. And there isn't going to be a new episode of One Hit Thunder this week. So instead, if you haven't yet listened to the episode that we did on the Macarena, and on Thursday, we'll be talking about From Dusk Till Dawn. So thank you, everybody, for watching. We will be back next week with another live stream. Who's the guest? I don't know. I was thinking about asking Chris from Punchline. Maybe he'll come and talk to us about pop punk music, because we talked a lot of metal. We talked a lot of video games on here. We haven't talked nearly enough pop punk. So tune in. We'll find out what happens. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.